Welcome, everyone, to HomeKit Insider. This is your host, Stephen Robles. Andrew couldn't make it this week. He'll be back again soon, but don't worry, because I have another smart home enthusiast with me, friend of the show, guest on the Apple Insider podcast a few months ago, Micah Sargent. How's it going, Micah?
It's going very, very well. I'm so excited to be on this show. I used to host a show on Twit called, and now I'm forgetting what it's called because it's been so long, Smart Tech Today was the name of it. And
that's
so, yeah, we used to cover a lot of smart home stuff. But, you know, that show's not around anymore. So I was chatting with you and had the opportunity to talk HomeKit and everything. I said, yes. Bring me.
Yes. So glad you can make it on. And we have a much better recording environment. When you were last on the Apple Insider show, we were on the floor of Podcast Movement, the expo hall. Very, very loud, but
very
much better
loud. And turns out very germy. I left Podcast Movement and for the first time got COVID. I had never had it before. Man, it took me out for 2 weeks, I think it was. It was wild. Oof.
Yeah, it could be rough. I made it out of there. Yeah, I made it out of there unscathed. So
good.
I pump the vitamin D and other things whenever I know I'm going to be around a bunch of people. So
very smart.
But yeah. But we have some HomeKit news. I want to hear about your smart home setup. I literally did a HomeKit project this morning. I just yanked like 4 switches out of the wall because I was so frustrated. So we'll get to that because I upgraded some switches. But let's talk about some news. Oh, I mentioned Apple Insider. Of course, listeners, now you should check out Apple Insider Podcast. That comes out every Friday. I host that with Wes and William. And the Apple Insider Daily Show comes out Monday through Friday. Top headlines in just a few minutes. So go check those out. Links in the description. And want to thank a 5-star reviewer, Craig GT16V from the UK, listening. We have a lot of UK listeners too. So thank you, Craig, for the 5-star review. So quick HomeKit news, and we're going to get to this rather, I don't know about controversial or at least frustrating for many users, the Chamberlain garage door fiasco. And I didn't even realize, but Micah actually is suffering from this very change. So we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a second. Couple of fun news things. This is a new robot vacuum that was announced called Matic. And I'm very familiar with robot vacuums and mops. I have several, actually, I've tried. Mm-hmm. This is a new style, a new model. You can pre-order it. It's not like available immediately. It is a combination vacuum and mop. Doesn't look anything like the Roborox and Ecovacs that maybe you've seen before. This guy kind of has like a broom in front of it, and that's actually the vacuum and mop thing. Supposedly much smarter than other robot vacuums and such. Looks really futuristic. I mean, it really looks like Jetsons level robot vacuum here.
Yeah, it's giving Wall-E.
Giving Wall-E, exactly. It looks cool. Supposedly the voice control is actually way better. Like you could say, clean this, and it might actually know your location and what it does. So it looks pretty cool. We'll actually have to test it, but I love a good robot vacuum. Do you have any robot vacuums, Mops?
Yeah, so I've used several. Ecovacs, I have tried a bunch of different Ecovacs products, and they are... The thing that I like about the Ecovacs products, and this technology has been added to others now, is the auto cleaning function. That afterward, it goes back into its little hutch and it takes out the stuff it's vacuumed up. It cleans the mopping pads if you've got that. I really appreciate that because, frankly, I don't think that I would be doing it enough if it was that case. Now, I noticed with the Matic, it doesn't have that functionality, but what it does do is it drives over by your trash can and kind of waits and says, hey, I need you to clean out my bag now. So you can easily kind of lift out the bag and toss it away. I think that's a nice kind of in-between option there. At least it's, it's almost alerting you to the fact that it needs to be emptied out. And yeah, I've been interested in the different technology that's available in terms of LiDAR, which is what Ecovacs uses to map your floor and your space. And they all have different versions of AI added on top of them that are supposed to go, oh, that is a cable and that is a dog's paw. And I'm not going to run over those things. Tell me about your experience. Do you feel that you have to clean up before your vacuum can clean up? Because that's kind of how I feel.
Yes, and mostly because I have 3 kids and a dog, and there's always stuff on the floor. And so I can't typically do auto cleaning or on a schedule because there'll inevitably be something that it gets stuck on. And I have the Ecovacs T20, I believe it is. It's the mop vacuum, actually mop lifting, so it can do both at the same time.
Oh, nice.
But so I have to like actually pick stuff up, look at the floors, make sure it's not going to choke on anything, because it doesn't avoid toys, at least in my experience. It'll avoid big things that it bumps into, but if there's like a Lego or something small, like it's going to choke. And so I typically have to go around and I'll choose the room specifically to clean. Typically I have to leave the kids' room off and then have to tell them to clean the room later. And so I found I have to do that. So I'm curious, you know, I would love to just be able to run it and the thing is smart enough to just do it all. We'll see. This thing looks like it does have a dust bag inside the actual robot that you would change out. And it does mop, but the dock part, I saw it just for a split second in this little preview video. It charges at the dock, but it actually doesn't empty into a dock or empty like it's water into that. It looks like everything's kind of self-contained in this little square robot thing. So curious how much you would have to change that out. I know the dustbin on my Ecovacs, I only change that bag every couple months maybe.
Right.
The water I do have to change pretty often because a lot of floors. Oh, this is the garbage thing, just real quick if you're watching. It's gone. But anyway,
It's there and it's gone again.
It's there and it's gone. But we'll put a link to the Matic in the show notes if you guys want to check it out. Interesting new style. I'm hoping it has Matter because now the Matter spec actually will include robot vacuums next year.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yes. So now I'm like, the next robot vacuum I get and to spend money on, it's got to have Matter because I want it in the home app. You know?
Yes, exactly. I want to be able to trigger it from that. I'm tired of right now having to set up all these strange special keyword phrases and different virtual assistants to get it to actually do the vacuuming. Now, of course, the Ecovacs robots, depending on which one you get, have a built-in virtual assistant, but that has only brought me frustration. Yes, that word is banned in our house.
I turned that off immediately because I've set up 2 different Ecovacs models to test, and I was like, I never want a voice assistant from I'm sorry, Ecovacs.
No, you do a fine job. It's okay with the robot, but as far as your virtual assistant, no thanks.
No thanks.
One other thing that I'll say about this is I do find the so it's got, it looks like several cameras in different places, and it's using that computer vision. The concept of saying vacuum here is actually quite compelling to me. If it can sense the gestures like it claims it can and would let me do that, I like that idea, because there are times where, oops, I dropped a little bit on the floor, and normally I would have to go and grab the little handheld vacuum to do that. So if I could just tell the Matic to go and do that. And I think the other thing about the Matic that appears to be what people are interested in is the privacy-minded aspect of it. It's my understanding that they are very clear about how your room mapping is yours, and that they're not trying to, sell that to third parties, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I am curious. I'm looking, I just found like kind of the top down open, and it has a water tank, but no dirty water tank. And that's something I'm curious about, because the Roborox and Ecovacs I've used, it empties the dirty water, you refill the clean water. So I'm curious if this just kind of pushes out clean water and mops. Like, I don't know where the dirty water goes. So I'm a little concerned.
The dirty water go?
I'm concerned about that. But this is also $1,400, it seems like, and that's like the sale price. It'll be $1,800, I think, when it's at full price. Oof. Ships in March 2024. So we still got some time. But yeah, curious about the Matic. But anyway.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
We'll have to see. All right, there's a couple quick news bits. Ikea has released a new Dirigera-Compatible color light strip. I actually know how to pronounce that because we have a listener who has said it for us. Let me see if I can actually play it real quick from our Riverside media board here. That's not that. What? That was not it at all. What in the world? There we go. There it is. All right, let's try this again. Wow, how does it not do that? I literally previewed it, and it was the Dirigera. I don't know what just happened. Anyway, I don't know what is going on. I don't know what's going on with it.
I'll take your word for it.
Just take my word for it. But anyway, this is IKEA's hub to get stuff into HomeKit, and they have a new light strip. I'm always down for a light strip. This one looks pretty nice. Just, if you're in that ecosystem.
Yeah. I think it just depends. Yeah, if you are already all in on Ikea's other HomeKit stuff or just smart home stuff in general,
right.
Then this would be a good addition to that. I had a bunch of light strips all over the place, and then I kind of started to limit my light strip usage because so many of them they don't have independently addressable zones. And so, I don't know, there's something kind of shticky about light strips in the end for me.
Addressable zones is a challenge. Like, I actually have the Aqara T1 light strip behind me. I actually don't even know if it's released yet. Maybe I shouldn't even say that, but I already did. Anyway, that's behind me. It has addressable zones, but you would have to set up specific scenes that hopefully sync to HomeKit. HomeKit doesn't surface those zones, so
right.
It's kind of like whatever. I have the Eve light strip, which has thread, and that's just a nice overall, no hub needed, just straight up light strip. That's been pretty good to me. So,
yeah. The one that I had, and now it's been so long since I got it. I can't remember now what company it was that made the independently addressable zones that I used pretty regularly, but it had all sorts of settings in the app for flickering and color chasing and all that. But I had so many issues with connectivity that I ended up, taking it out of my setup just because it was too much of a frustration. Yeah. So now, I've got one in my main living space that turns on at sunset and it just provides light in the kitchen. It's kind of a downlight option for the cabinets.
I kind of wish I had, because we built our house a little over a year ago, I wish I had outlets put in the island and some of the cabinetry at the floor so you can have that LED light strip downlighting, because I have a friend who has it. It's pretty sweet. So yeah,
it does look nice.
Yeah, it looks really nice, especially in the evening. If you're just going in the kitchen in the middle of the night, have the LED strips pointed towards the floor. It's nice.
Yeah.
So let's talk about smart switches just for a second. There's some new Matter over Thread smart switches coming out. This one's on Kickstarter, and this is one of these switches that also has sensors built into it. And so this looks like it's Switchless is the name of the brand. Has actually lights around the switches, which is pretty wild. Might be nice, if you're in the dark trying to find it. But also has temperature, humidity, motion, sound, and CO2 sensors in the switch. And so be HomeKit compatible through Matter, of course. It is Kickstarter, so it's not like you can get it right now, and whether it's finally going to come or not, remains to be seen. But I like switches that have multiple uses, especially motion sensors in a switch, and you can get those right now. I think Leviton has some, but it's always nice. More options.
I love that it's doing the most, and that's in the best way. I like that it's got all of that built in. I think the one complaint I have, it's the capacitive touch. It looks neat. It is awesome and futuristic. But when we are trying to get people who are not smart home enthusiasts to buy into the smart home stuff, give them a target. Give them if you can't give them a full-on rocker switch, give them like Leviton does, or Lutron does, and Leviton does it as well. The two buttons where, I know the top means turn on and the bottom means turn off.
Exactly.
It's been my experience that just makes it all the more simple to convince other people that it's totally worth having smart home stuff.
Exactly. Now, when it comes to smart switches, it was germane because I just replaced a bunch this morning before we recorded. And we also had a question from Jim on X saying he was asking about dimming wall switch and smart plugs that have Matter over Thread or HomeKit with Thread. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to switches, it's a little, it's not a great landscape right now. You can get Thread switches. Wemo has a Thread switch. I don't believe they have a Thread dimmer right now. Eve has a Thread switch. Eve doesn't make any dimmers, though. And Eve's is the capacitive, just like you said. I actually have it right here in the studio. And it's a little I had to reset it a couple times because it stopped responding. And because there's no actual hardware switch, you can't hold a button to reset it. You really have to shut the power off to the room and then turn it back on, which is not
frustrating.
Great. Yeah. And now I have Leviton, Maris, I have a Wemo. I have all the brands of the light switches. And while Thread is the promising future of these switches, I have to say, if you want reliability the most, and it is just your top priority when it comes to switches, I have to recommend like the one brand being Lutron. It is
Absolutely
the best, and
the best.
It is the best. I literally had 4 of these Wemo switches in my master bathroom.
I feel like choking that little switch out. Those I've had them, and they were frustrating and terrible.
Very frustrating. The reason why, so when we were building this house, I was buying a lot of switches because the entire house, every switch was going to be a smart switch, and I was going for the most economical options. Maris had the most economical. It was like $20 for a smart switch, HomeKit, no hub, no dimming. And then Wemo was like the second most at like $30-something. That's for these kinds. The Leviton was above that, and then Lutron is just the most. It is just the most expensive.
Yeah.
These guys, though, like this Wemo switch, I had switches and dimmers. These are kind of annoying because it only depresses at the bottom. You can't tap it on the top. So like someone who's used to a rocker switch, this is not that. You have to press it on the bottom for both on and off. And these are Wi-Fi, not Bluetooth, not Thread, not anything. It's just Wi-Fi. And they disconnect so often. So often. It's so frustrating. And my master bathroom, there is 4 switches. And I have this automation where when I turn the main vanity light off, the whole bathroom turns off. Because usually when you're leaving the bathroom, you turn everything off. And it's just kind of one of those just easy automations, just turn off everything off. And there would inevitably always be one light that doesn't respond because one of these Wemo switches are not connected anymore. And I go to the home app, I see accessories not responded. And so I've had enough, Micah. I'm not dealing with it anymore.
Amen.
I'm slowly spending the money, which is not cheap.
No.
And I'm replacing every non-Lutron switch with a Lutron. And the ones I've been getting are the Diva and Claro, which are their newer style switches, which are super nice because they don't have any icons on it. You know, the old Lutron ones, they were flat, and they had kind of this iconography on it. And it wasn't as visual appealing as these new ones. These new ones, this is the Diva, and it looks just like a normal paddle switch. And it has a hard dimmer slider on the right. No iconography, very minimal branding. Like, I love the look of these. $73 for one dimmer. And it's like, only because it is so rock solid do I recommend these. I have never, ever had to reset a Lutron switch, ever.
Same.
And it is the only one I can say that for. So,
yeah, there was one other brand that was shocking to me how well it worked, and it was KooGeek, that Koo Geek.
Okay.
So I had several when I lived in Missouri, had a home. And so there were lots of lights versus now living in California where you've got a townhome that's much smaller. And all of mine were outfitted with either Lutron Caseta or the KooGeek. And what was great about the KooGeek is that you could get, and I don't even think they make them anymore.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it and I don't see it anywhere.
Yeah, and that was a bummer to see it go away. I don't know what happened. It was a Chinese brand, and on the face of it seemed to be kind of a budget option, but I was shocked at how reliable they were. There was the option to have 2 switches in one plug. And so nice. I used that because in every room in my home there, I had 2 switches, one to turn on the fan and then one to turn on the lights that were in the fan. And so I was able to replace those 2 gang switches with just a 1 gang switch that had the kind of 2 switches stacked, one below and one above. And so between those and the Caseta, everything was so reliable. And yeah, to this day, that Lutron's option is still what I recommend. You can kind of save money when you're first starting out by getting the kind of multi-pack. But then after that, buying them one by one gets real pricey real quick. But what I like also about Lutron's Caseta line is that they have different options based on your wiring, what lights you plan on using, whether you're going to use it with a fan. So some of them are lower voltage options. A lot of them, it's one of the only like premium brands where if you live in an older home without the neutral wire, the white wire, you can still use these switches. And so I found that to be quite nice because I could recommend it to anyone regardless of what home they lived in.
Exactly. And the last house I was in was an older home, no neutral. It was just 2 wires in every switch. And Lutron was pretty much the only switch that would support that. No neutral. I think a Kara switch also worked with no neutral, but it was not as nice nor as reliable. And these, it's kind of weird. The dimmer does not require a neutral. So if you want to get the Lutron, the new Diva dimmer, that works without a neutral. But the Claro, just the plain switch, requires a neutral. It's a little weird. And it's unfortunate because it just looks great. And the old one didn't. But you can still mix and match, if you're okay doing it. And the fan control for Lutron is also one of the few options you have in HomeKit, but it also works really well. I have a bunch of those fan controls. So.
Nice.
Yeah, Lutron. I mean, they are not sponsoring this episode. They really should, but it's, it's the best.
You should get them on the horn, yeah.
It is the best. All right, this news was also big. The smart garage door controller MyQ, not only did they turn off HomeKit support, but now they are just turning off all the support. Even Homebridge, which is the hacky way to get some devices into HomeKit and into your Apple Home, they've turned off all that unauthorized access to its API, quote unquote unauthorized.
Yeah.
So if you want to use the Chamberlain MyQ, you have to use their app. And Micah, you actually have this garage door opener, is that right?
Yeah, so when I lived in Missouri, I actually had the full-on, just the garage door opener, like the motor. It itself was MyQ. Now, living here in California, can't change out the device itself, but I do have the MyQ garage door opener, which basically what it does is it takes the code that your garage door opener is sending and kind of stores it, and then it's inside the garage, and whenever you interact with it, then it just sends that signal to the garage door opener and causes it to open. It's connected to Wi-Fi, so it can do that. And for the longest time, I used the MyQ system with HomeKit by way of Homebridge. I've been using Homebridge for a long time. My Homebridge Raspberry Pi is running right now for some other things. And it was handy because I could do everything that the garage door interface would allow me to do within HomeKit. One of my favorite things being that as I approached with my car, the Siri suggestion would pop up in CarPlay with my garage door. I could hit the button, and even though I was further away than the button in my car would allow the garage door to open, I could start to open the garage door and drive in. Then MyQ decided, you know what we don't like? We don't like people not using our app. And so what we're going to do is we are going to completely disable all third-party, essentially, access to the garage door opener. And what's most frustrating about that is it's so reminiscent of these car companies that are trying to ditch CarPlay and say that it's, for all of these other reasons, when we know that ultimately it's all boiling down to wanting to have the data, the interaction, and in the case of MyQ, be able to serve ads to the users. And
are there ads in the app? Are there ads
so there are ads for MyQ. They're not doing third-party apps, thank goodness. But it's all, ooh, you should get the MyQ camera. Ooh, you should get. And so I have almost entirely not used it at all. I am, because I've got the mirror in my car that has a little button on it that I programmed. So it's how I leave, how I come back. The most interaction that I have regularly with the MyQ app is just a notification on my phone that lets me know the garage door was open, the garage door was closed. And the reason why I even keep it up at all is because I do use Amazon's Key delivery. So for folks who don't know, Amazon introduced this program a while back where with some smart garage door openers, you could basically give your Amazon delivery driver temporary access to your garage. They can hit the button to bring up the garage door. They don't even walk into your garage in most cases. They're not supposed to. They place the package where you've asked them to, and then they hit the button again and it closes the garage. And it's all just kind of happens automatically. It's great if you live in an area where package theft might be a thing, or maybe even just, you feel more comfortable about that. And if you have a camera that it also integrates with the system, then the camera will automatically start when the garage door opens and stop recording after the garage door closes. The delivery driver is made aware of the fact that you have a camera, so they know too. It's a great system. And for a while, it was the way I was having USPS and some other services that Amazon occasionally uses. They weren't making deliveries as they were supposed to. So Amazon Key was kind of my cheat code because it kind of forced them to use their own services to deliver my packages. And so it worked. Unfortunately now, Amazon has moved to a pay to play kind of system where you pay, I think it's $1 or $1.99 if you want to have your packages delivered via Amazon Key, unless you have them delivered on what's called your Amazon Day, which is the day that you can choose as a Prime member where you just get most of your packages delivered. Right. So if you need it tomorrow or the next day, then you have to pay to have it delivered via Amazon Key. So I'm not even doing that as much anymore. So really the MyQ system, its only purpose is to load anxiety that I have about, did you close the garage door? And so, yeah, they're not winning with me because I only look at the notification. I don't go into the app really.
Right. So this is unfortunate. And now for like HomeKit Garage, you basically have two options. One is the Maris device that you can add on to any motor. And then there's another like smart something. I forget even what the brand is. I don't even know. But I do the Maris. I've had the Maris one for years. It's been super reliable, and I highly recommend. But this is unfortunate. You know, it's unfortunate when brands kind of get a little hostile to third-party access and doing things. And Homebridge also, I mean, it must have been such a small, percentage of MyQ users.
It's not easy to get that set up.
It's not like even HomeKit users.
It's a whole process. It is good to hear that the Maris one works well for you, because I have had one of those for the longest time, and I just never installed it because I had the MyQ. So it's just been sitting it's probably been 2 years that I bought that, and I just have never installed it because I don't even remember why I bought it in the first place. I think I was getting tired of having to use that intermediary of Homebridge. I just thought, let's just have a straight up smart home or a HomeKit garage door opener.
And I'll be honest, I've used Homebridge in the past. I had like an old Roomba. I hacked into there, and I had I forgot what else, a doorbell from Vivint, which was a security system at my old house. And there was actually a Homebridge plugin where you can get the doorbell and alarm system into HomeKit that way. And now, like, I've gotten everything just as much straight HomeKit as possible, but also it's just too flaky. Like, it's okay. It's pretty good most of the time, but it's obviously a hack. Like, this is not supposed to be, it's not intended to actually work this way. It's all, plugins that have to be updated regularly. Not Homebridge itself has to be updated, plus the plugins for every specific device you add in there. And so, if you really want something, like I know ADT has plugins for Homebridge, and I'm going to answer a listener question I'll just answer it now. Like Asaph Goodenough on Mastodon was asking about power over Ethernet cameras, and this was most Ubiquiti Unify users, and I am one who uses their networking stuff, swear by their cameras, which are power over Ethernet. Problem is there's not HomeKit support directly. And so one of the very popular Homebridge use cases is to bring those Ubiquiti Unify power over Ethernet cameras into your home app using Homebridge. And from all the listeners that have reached out to me have said it actually works very well. But unfortunately for Asaph, he was asking about HomeKit Secure Video. It does not do HomeKit Secure Video. You have to use Unify's recording software either via hard drive in your Dream Machine or other switch powered thing. But HomeKit Secure Video from Apple, basically recording through your iCloud subscription, you have to get an HSV camera for that. And your options are basically the Logitech Circle View. You can get like the Wemo doorbell, the Eve outdoor camera and indoor camera, and the Aqara cameras also use HomeKit Secure Video. Those are really your only choices. And there are no power over Ethernet cameras that also work with HomeKit Secure Video. And so there's just no option. Best case is Unify with Homebridge to get the cameras into HomeKit.
Yeah, fingers crossed that answers the question. It's complicated and frustrating, but I think HSV has seen some improvements over time where it's a solid option. with some caveats, because I think I I was unimpressed with how it recognized people. I don't think it does as good a job of that as I would like, I guess is what I'll say.
Yeah. I'll go in here and see. It's always roulette. How many HomeKit secure video cameras are offline? Right now, I got two. I got two offline.
Darn it!
So I got two HSV cameras offline, and those are Logitech Circle Views, just the standalone cameras. They're kind of spotty. I'm going to be real, but I will say the Logitech Circle View doorbell camera, which I've had for the past year and a half. It is hardwired power, which so are the other Circle Views. Not hardwired Ethernet. It works over Wi-Fi.
Oh, nice.
That doorbell camera is super solid. It actually never disconnects, and it actually does a really good job at facial recognition. There's even a kid here in the neighborhood that comes to play with my daughter, and in HomeKit, in the Home app, you can actually name faces, even if you don't have photos of them in the Photos app. And so I've named this person's face, and it pretty consistently will say so-and-so's at the door, like their name. They recognize the face. So the Logitech Circle View camera specifically, I have good experience with. The Circle View standalone cameras, the little circle ones, like those, like I just showed, they go offline pretty often, I'll be honest. So, yeah, it's a shame. PoE cameras, they would be amazing. I'm sure they're super reliable, but I've not invested in all that. But anyway, so Micah, it's your first time on HomeKit Insider. And you did your show previously with all your stuff. So I would just like to know, as we near the end here, tell me about some of your favorite HomeKit devices, maybe some of your favorite automations that you have.
My favorite HomeKit device, and it's hard for me to say this because it comes from a brand that has let me down in so many other ways. Is the Waymo? I think it's called the State. Yes, thank you. This stage controller. Yes.
Stage controller.
Yeah, you got one right there.
Yeah,
this little thing, when I first got it, it was only able to work over Bluetooth. So I took it and I put it in a drawer and I waited until they announced Thread support. And when they finally announced Thread support, I set it up. Right. I got the firmware update. And this little friend of mine is easily my favorite gadget because it is stone cold reliable for me. I think maybe I've had one or two times where it didn't work, and it was simply because my Thread network was being weird. It had to do with my HomePod minis, them doing something weird. Outside of that, I can press the button and now I've gone dark in my room. I press the other button and immediately all of the lights come back on. I've got one for setting a night light in the room and it just works. And it is so responsive. It is exactly what I want from a smart home device. I have come close to thinking about buying a bunch of these and actually putting them all throughout the home as the control for everything because of how great it is at doing what I needed to do. But the fact is, I already do that with my other favorite device, which is from Philips Hue. I seem to really like remote controls. So Philips Hue, the little dimmer switch is, let me see what exactly it's called. It has 4 buttons on it, and you use them to obviously turn on lights and turn off lights. The Philips Hue dimmer switch. Cool. I thought that's what it was called. So what's great about this is you can expose it to HomeKit and then let the buttons each mean something in HomeKit if you want to. And I have used these for years as a means of controlling more than one light and more than one device, even outside of outside of Hue, in a specific room. And they have been rock steady reliable. This is where I also mention my other favorite Philips Hue device, which is the Philips Hue motion sensor. I think there is no better motion sensor on the planet, and I defy someone to convince me of another one, because when I lived in my home, I had one in the hallway, And for the entire period of time that I lived there, there was a light switch on the wall. No one ever even thought to touch the light switch because they'd never had to worry about it being light in the hallway. There was a Philips Hue bulb in the thing in the hallway, and the sensor was in the right place, and I had it set up where if the brightness is this, then you don't need to turn it on. If it's not, then you do. And if it's after this period of time, then only turn it on as like a night light. People, who've never seen smart home stuff before, no one ever reached up and messed things up by flipping on and off that switch because it just happened before they even thought about needing to turn on and off the switch. I love that thing. I think it's fantastic.
That's cool.
And the last thing I'll mention, it's a more modern product. This is the Aqara P. Yes, the Aqara P2, I think, presence sensor, and it
P2,
is FP2. What's cool about this is it is what I imagine for a smart home in terms of, what I would love to this day, is that the ultra-wideband in my Apple Watch, ultra-wideband chip in my Apple Watch, and the ultra-wideband chip in this HomePod Mini I have sitting here could communicate with one another. And so that when I walked into my office, it would go, oh, right, Mike is in the room.
Yes.
And for the entire period that I'm in the room, it would keep the lights on. And in the moment I left, then it would turn them off, right? That's what we all want. And right now what we do is we set up motion sensors. Rosemary has a vibration sensor on her chair. And occasionally, if you're very still, then you end up needing to do this. For the folks who are listening, I'm just moving around like one of those flailing arm men.
Shaking violently, yes.
Or, you move your hands in the air to let the sensor in the room know. I hate that. That's not how it should be. And so I wish that that was made possible in HomeKit. I'm still waiting for that. But in the meantime, what's great about this FP2 sensor is that it uses a form of radar, and it also has a built-in light sensor so that it just knows that there's quite literally a person in the room. We're bags of water. And so we stand out in comparison to other things. And so it can detect up to, I think, 5 people in the room, although they say it's best, not detecting more than 3. That's fine. I'm only one person in the room. It's all I need you to detect. And it is so precise that if I lived in something bigger than a shoebox, it would be able to sense me from across the room. I have to tell you, I was a little depressed when I set it up because it tells you, stand on the farthest wall this way, stand on the farthest wall that way, stand on the farthest wall that way. And the square is like this big. And then as you stand on the farthest wall, it kind of brings it in and limits it. Yeah. By the time it was done, my box was so small. And I thought, oh my goodness, the walls are closing in on me. Yeah.
The Matchbox.
But I just think this is a super cool device. I think cool. Some of the stuff that Aqara has worked on and is doing is pretty neat. So I think those are my faves at the moment.
That's pretty cool. I fully agree. Your assessment of the Hue motion sensor, it's the MVP, best motion sensor. I have an Eve one. I have other ones. They pale in comparison. The Hue is just super fast. I also like HomeKit buttons.
Nice.
We have talked about many times on the show. I got a bunch. The 2.0, the Flick, the Aqara button. Like I just showed, I have the Wemo a stage controller. My question for you, the Wemo one, how's the battery? How often do you have to change the battery on this thing?
That's a good question. I don't know that I've paid enough attention. I know I have changed the battery once, but I may have done it more than that, and I just don't recall. Is your battery draining pretty quick?
Okay. For some reason, mine, I've used this for a while on and off, and I find the battery drains fast. I don't know why. And I leave it here in my studio. There's like thread devices everywhere. Like I have multiple HomePods and everything.
Oh, no.
I think if something just flew in my eye. I need a button to get it out. Anyway, that was my only weirdness about it. And there might be firmware updates that I haven't done on it in a while. But that was my other thing. My other question for you on this is, if our listeners don't know, you can program single tap, double tap, and triple tap on each of the 3 buttons. So you can literally have 9 different controls. And that sounded amazing to me at first. And so I tried to set them all as different and then I have this like, mental breakdown every time I try to figure out what is a double tap. I forgot which button. So how many do you have? How many do you have set up, or like what is your?
Yeah, so it's
like how do you
single tap, double tap, and then long press for And so what I've done is tried to make it easy on myself. The top one turns the lights on, the bottom one turns the lights off just with one press, and the middle one is for a night light option. Yeah. And for the top two, because the lights are on, I've gone ahead and set the double tap to just mean turn it off. So since the bottom one is already turn it off, I just don't do a second one for that. But yeah, so instead of having to hit the third, if I wanted to, I can just double tap the top or double tap the middle and it will turn them off. So if I was kind of holding it in my hand at night and I just keep my finger there, the one press turns it on, a double press turns it off. I don't even have to switch to a different button. But yeah, I could set up 9 different things, but I'm no Matthew Casanelli, who just has like every possible automation ever. So I try to keep it simple for myself. And also, I don't trust things to work as I expect them to, because as you probably have had the experience, it's like, some things disappoint you. So I want to give it the best opportunity to not disappoint me. And it does that by me not setting up too many options.
That's good. That's good. I'll give it another shot. I leave it here, and I don't even know if I've changed the battery in a while. So I'll give it another shot. Maybe I'll like it again. And do you have any, last thing, do you have any favorite automations or any like scenes in particular that you feel like, this is taking advantage of my smart home?
Automations that I think are great. One is the lights that are outside of my home. When the sun goes down, those lights come on, and when the sun goes up, those lights turn off. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to worry about it. That's been a long time automation. And then the other one I happened to mention earlier is there's a light strip in the kitchen, and again, when the sun goes down, that light strip just turns on in the kitchen. It's also just a nice reminder of like, time has elapsed. I see that light come on and I realize, the sun has gone down, and we're moving about the rest of our evening. Yeah, exactly. Moving about the cabin.
Yeah, exactly. At 30,000 feet.
And so I like that as again, just sort of the space is telling me what's going on. I used to have automations for my TV through the Apple TV, that when the Apple TV came on, it would specifically turn off one of the 2 lights that are in my living room, because there was one light that would glare against the TV. And so that was always annoying. So it's like, when the Apple TV turns on, just go ahead and turn off this light, because we would have enough light elsewhere. Now I have a different television that does not have that glare, so I ended up disabling that one. But that one was kind of nice, because I would end up before that just frustratingly going, I need to go turn that light off. Then I'm like, why have I not automated this? I just need to automate this. Yeah.
Exactly. Just automate it. Very cool. Well, that's fun. Well, Micah, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. If our listeners and viewers, I know you're on the Twitch network, but where would you point people
it's very easy.
To find
you
more
just
of
go
what
to
you do?
chihuahua.coffee. That's CHIHUAHUA.coffee. That's going to forward you to my bento page that just has all of my links for the podcasts I do on Twit, for the podcasts I do for Relay. It's all the stuff.
That's hilarious. I forgot about chihuahua.com.
Because people are like, how do you spell Chihuahua?
Yeah. Well, we will put it in the show notes. Listeners and viewers, you could just click it there, and everything we talked about. And, of course, don't forget you can subscribe at youtube.com/HomeKit Insider. You can watch the show. We had lots of fun visuals today. And Micah, thanks again for joining us. It was a pleasure.